All right, you are live.
Welcome, everybody, to the 15 April 2024 meeting of the Annapolis Transportation Board. It's income tax today, and I hope everybody made the deadline. I somewhat waggishly refer to this day as the day when more fiction is written than any other day of the year. But I hope you are not among those who are the fiction writers. I have, in looking at the agenda, there doesn't seem to be a lot this time around, unless you will rescue the group and come through with substantive content. But let me go ahead and start running through the agenda, which was distributed. I call the meeting to order, and I can see that in attendance are Tom Schock, myself, Zoe Johnson, Hugh Hayes, David DeQuincio, Alderwoman O'Neill is here, and Beth Dolezal and Tara Ashmore. Maybe others will be joining later, we'll see. The agenda was distributed. If there are no suggestions for changes, I will proceed on it. There is no public participation that I'm aware of. So we are promptly at the point in the agenda where we can hear from our chairman of the Transportation Committee on the City Council, Alderwoman Karma O'Neill.
Thank you. I was trying to keep my screen off because I'm sitting outside eating dinner.
Good for you. Yeah, I have stuff in my teeth as well.
Yeah, exactly. We did not have a meeting this month for the Transportation Committee because we did not have any legislation before us, and I was busily prepping for the budget hearings that started today with the City Council and all of the department heads coming through. So as you know, they released the budget last week, and we'll spend the next 2.5 weeks in budget presentations with each department head and their staff, talking about what is in the budget, what they didn't get in the budget, but they hope to get in the budget, and maybe what they got in the budget, but the council is not going to approve what they got in the budget. So those hearings will go on. There's 3 per day. They are televised if anybody is interested in watching them and or going back and watching them, or if you watch them and you have questions, if you want to text or email me questions, I'm happy to share those questions. We are sticking to a pretty strict schedule where each department has 1 hour, and within that hour they do their presentation, which is usually a slideshow, and then question and answers from the council. At the end of all of those presentations, the finance department will sit down and write the final reports to present to the council as a whole on what we believe should be either added or subtracted to the budget, as well as any other amendments that any one of us or council members want to make. This year will be the last year that we will have the ARPA funds, which were COVID funds that were from the federal government. We have to have all of those leftover funds allocated by the 31st of December and used by December 31st, 2025. I know that we have roughly $7 million in ARPA funds, and they're using 1.5 million, proposing to buy a new fireboat. And then there's other proposals for a significant amount of the rest of that money. As far as transportation goes, we have been in discussions with both Premium Parking and SP Plus. Premium Parking came and presented in March to the Transportation Committee, and there's ongoing discussions with that. And they will be back again at the May Transportation Committee meeting, along with the Bird Scooter folks, who will come and do an update on where we are, give us some data on the usage of the Bird scooters and bikes. They had taken away a significant amount of them during the winter months because they just weren't being used. But they are showing back up again. I've seen just in the last week, I've seen scooters along Cedar Park, along West Street at the Navy Stadium. So there's a lot of that going on. Um, as far as the parking situation goes, I am working with Marcus Moore, the Director of Transportation, and we are going to do a couple of, I'm going to call them happy hours at Noah Hillman Garage. They'll be Friday afternoons. I think we're planning one for a Tuesday as well, between 5 and 6, where we're going to be on site in the garage and invite anybody that wants to come and learn how to apply for the 2-hour free citizen parking at Hillman Garage, as well as signing up for the app and how to just manage the parking. We are told by our finance department that we are ahead of the projections for revenue for Noah Hillman Garage, approximately $100,000 ahead as of last week, which surprised me because I thought with all of the refunds and voiding of tickets, we would be way behind. But apparently we're still ahead, which is good. As you probably remember, that Noah Hillman parking garage, we are hoping for what's called a waterfall because it's part of the private-public partnership. Say that 5 times fast. They are managing the garage, and the waterfall payment that we have will go into the transportation fund. I was really saddened last week when we had a work session on Thursday that a significant amount of the ARPA funds are going to go for the shortfall that we have in the parking fund and the transportation fund. We always have run at a deficit on that. I think that using the ARPA funds is just kicking the can down the road a little bit on that. And I'm urging our transportation as well as our finance department to really drill down and figure out what it is and why it is that we are running such a deficit on that parking fund.
Could you explain? I'm not sure I fully understand. The parking fund is the sum of all revenues from all parking thing, or just from Hillman?
All parking.
I see. And although Hillman is ahead of the projection, the rest of the system is not for some reason.
Correct. And it's always been that way.
Is it markedly different this year from in the past or not?
No, it's just one of those things that's been behind and behind and behind. And so the deficit this year just seems to be out of control, I think. Maybe that's not the right words to use, but I think that we need to really take a good hard look at what we're doing with our transportation departments, what we're doing with our transportation funding, how we are allocating, and seeing if there's other ways for revenue.
Okay. Any discussion from members of the board? I have 2 things, Karma.
Yes.
First of all, I continue to harp on an old subject. I think a lot of the difficulty of using that 2-hour parking allowance is caused by the bad design of the system. That since we have optical scanners that can read license plates, it's really a software modification problem that could solve the whole thing. And I would personally advocate that the city put pressure on that contractor to, make the investment in the software, which will make it more user friendly.
Yes, and we are doing that. A couple meetings back, I believe it was the November meeting where we did the joint meeting with finance department and transportation. And we were told by the contractor, well, we own the software. Well, show us.
Yes, exactly.
Basically is what I've said. Show us. how
if
you can manipulate and change that software.
yeah, if you can't make any changes, you don't really own anything, I think.
Right.
But then the second thing is, I really urge you and the city to consider this fare free parking thing again. If you've got $7 million of funds that must be allocated and spent by a deadline, I would personally recommend that $350,000 of that be used to make free parking. That's all it takes. Right, a free transit on the fixed bus routes. It's a very small amount of money. It has a huge bang for the buck in we think more than doubling the usage of the system that we're spending a lot of money on and not getting much use out of.
Unfortunately, those are just one-time use funds, but I'll certainly take
Well,
that.
let's run a 1-year experiment and see if it works. There's nothing like a successful experiment to change the future. So,
Right.
all right. Thank you for bringing us up to date on that. The next item on the agenda is the Transportation Department, and I don't know that we
Kurt?
have. Yes.
I had my hand up to give Karma, wanted to
Oh,
give
very good.
Karma a comment.
Yes.
I was successful for the first time in using my two free hour parking. It took me 2 tries, one because my code had expired, and I had a little bit of trouble finding on the website where to request a new code. So I don't know if that could be made more obvious on the website for the city where residents can go to request a 2-hour code. It took a bit of digging for me. Once I requested, I got it right away, and I had success using it the next weekend. So the app is pretty easy. And I noticed from the first code, which was like 14 or 15 digits long, it was much shorter, and it's easier to remember because it includes your street number and your address. So that's a good improvement. But the only thing I can see is that it might be easier on the website for where to go to request a code.
Okay, I'll make note of that.
Very good. Well, I'm glad you found your way through the maze. Do all of these things expire on the same date, or are they scattered throughout the year? When did yours expire? Do you know?
They
I
were
have no idea.
supposed to update them all for January 31st expiration, but everything was supposed to be pushed to January 31st, 2025. So I actually made note to find out why yours was expired, Zoe.
Yeah, that was what was weird, because I thought they had just been pushed, and then they said it had expired. So, but then they gave me a new code. So it's all good. I made my donation to the city for the first time around.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to figuring this out. Thank you for encouraging me to try myself.
It's really not difficult. I was apprehensive, and once you have the right code, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And it does allow you, I was worried about this as well. It does allow you, if you already have your credit card programmed in, if you set it up ahead of time, your credit card is already plugged in, that if you need to add time after your free 2 hours, you can do so, and it just gets charged to your credit card.
And
I was worried about like needing to get back by 2 hours, but it does allow you to extend, and then they just charges the additional hours to your credit card if you have it set up ahead of time.
You have to take a step to extend it, or will it do it automatically as you depart from the garage?
I think you have to take a step. I mean, it warned me that it was going to expire, so I just added more time.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. The software ought to do that when you leave. But
it will give you a text notification if you've signed up for the text notifications that you've got 15 minutes left, and if you'd like to extend. And when it was first rolled out, you could only extend by hour, but they did make the change that you can now extend in 15-minute increments.
Right.
So I was happy with it.
And the 2-hour allocation in Hillman is an all or nothing thing. You use your full 2 hours, or you use nothing. Isn't that right? You use 1 hour, you can't come back and use it later in the day.
I think that is correct. And that's one thing that we're trying to change, because the other thing that currently goes on with the code is it's a code for your entire household. And so if Zoe uses it for a meeting in the morning, but on the same day, one of her children goes to use it in the afternoon, that it'll kick it out and say it's not eligible to use.
Hmm.
But I've asked that it be a code per vehicle because I don't always know if my child or my husband have gone downtown or not. And if I'm banking on that, and then get disappointed because it doesn't show up, that's a problem. So it should be per vehicle. It shouldn't be per address per day.
Okay. Thank you. The transportation department rep is not here tonight, as my screen tells me. So we'll move on to the next item. There's been no change in board membership. We still have 4 vacancies. Please, if you know of some good people, let me know, and I will work the city to try to fill those vacancies. Moving on to old business, we may be stepping quickly through this. Hugh, do you have anything on the bridge shared trail project?
No updates.
Okay. And what about that intersection?
I am actually gonna go meet with Burr Vogel like towards the end of the month, and he's said he's gonna meet me there at the intersection. I reached out to him because I didn't feel like
Great.
our resolution got much traction, so I just reached out to him, and he's gonna meet up with me and talk about it then. I'm not sure where that's gonna go, but he's gonna meet with him.
Well, the squeaky wheel gets oiled, so thanks for squeaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Beth, you had made a request to join the focus group for Hillman Garage, which may not have gone entirely smoothly. Is she even here? Beth, yes, I see you are here. Can you say anything to us about what has happened on your participation in the Hillman situation? She may be having connectivity problems.
She did, I believe, log out and call in. Beth, if you're on the phone and you can hear me, you have to press the asterisk on the keypad and then the 6 to
There.
unmute.
I think
I
you're
got
hearing
it.
There we
I
go.
got it. Yeah, and the thing is, I even jotted it down so I'd remember, and then I forgot. But that's okay. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was denied being on the focus group because they did not want anybody from Transportation Board, which seems a little weird, but that's what they said. But I was told that I should continue to work through the Transportation Board for any changes that we would want to residential parking, because my focus is residential parking, and residential parking is part of the function of this board. And so I mentioned it last month. I need to put something together and bring it before the board, and then we can discuss and then determine, what direction to go in or whatever. So, and I will do that. I just haven't done it yet.
Okay.
And that's it. That's where the city's left me, and the transport board.
Could you or Karma clarify for us all how the representation on that focus group is selected? Does the city have any input, or is it only premium parking that makes the selection?
Karma needs to speak to that because they have been very secretive about that group.
It is not a secret. The constituent services representative, Hillary Raftovich, was approached by Premium Parking and asked for a list of names. She purposely went out to each alderperson and got somebody from each of the wards. They are public. Most of them are people that have not served on any other boards, commissions, so the Premium Parking folks felt like it was a group of people that represented somebody that didn't already have a voice. They've had 4 meetings. The first meeting was those 8 people, I think it was 7 or 8 people. I think there was a couple of people that didn't show up. Questions about parking. Had they used parking? What was their experience with parking, both at Hillman and in the neighborhoods? The second meeting, they were supposed to have tried both if they had not already. And the third meeting just happened last week, and some solutions were brought forward for people to discuss, talk about, if they felt like they were easy to understand, new written directions, things like that. The only reason, and please don't take this personally, Beth, the only reason they didn't have you is they had already had testimony from you about the parking. There was 2 other people too, also from Ward 1, who have testified at least once, if not more, in front of premium parking and talking about the issues. And they felt like they had you, they have your notes, they've shared with those notes with the people that are on that focus group. They've decided not to release who's on the focus group because the focus group asked them not to. They said they didn't want to be bombarded with either additional questions or people trying to, change their minds, sway their opinions or whatever. And I kind of saw that as a positive in some ways, because it's a group of people that were called to see instead of their opinion, instead of coming to the council, which a lot of times, or to the premium parking, which a lot of times happens. We don't always hear from everybody. So we did the outreach instead of incoming interest. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
All right. I'm glad to hear that the city does have input to that. And I can actually appreciate the rationale for, in a sense, keeping experts out of that focus group. We do have a voice, and Beth, we can and should express ourselves through the conduit that we have already. And
Yeah.
so I think that's not an unacceptable state of affairs.
Well, yes, and like I said, I'm going to put something together and bring it before the group. I'll talk to you about it first, and we'll, I have to admit that, other than, giving my opinion and whatever, I'm not used to writing something up that goes to the group.
Mhm.
So I'll work with you
Okay, good.
on it. We
Yeah,
need to, I need to do it. It's up to me, and I need to do it.
That's the most effective way of proceeding, I think. Okay. Nothing new apart from what I already said on fare free transit. I made a request for data on the parking district 5 portion of our board recommendation regarding parking boundary modifications. And I'm waiting for those data. It's been 2 months. It's really not much that I've asked for, and I would hope that would happen soon. Our recommendations are most credible and most accurate in an environment of rich data availability. And so I'm trying to get more so that we can pull the string a little bit farther on that. Anything else on that? If not, we're in new business.
I had
And,
one quick question.
yes, Hugh?
Zoe, is there anything that you can share on the United States Naval Academy Bridge project? If you had any updates that you could share with us?
No, I don't have any updates. Last week I was thinking I need to reach out to SHA and find out where they are. They're hiring a new consultant. They had to switch contractors.
Okay.
And that was what was causing a slight delay. And I have not heard if they have secure. They were hiring, I believe, Mean Hunt, who was currently working with the city. But last week I lost track of time, but I did want to. And once I find out, I'll let you know, Hugh, or let the board know when the project is back on track. But I don't have an update on it. I do have it. We're not in the around the room yet updates, are we? Did we skip over that?
No, we're about to get to that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I do have a couple other updates, but not on the bike project.
Okay. Just one last thing before we go on to the new business. There's an item that's not on the agenda. It's been on there twice. And John Giannetti promised twice to come forward with paper that we could endorse recommending a bicycle path on the new Chesapeake Bay Bridge. But he is neither attending meetings nor coming through with the promised paperwork on that. So I've dropped it temporarily from the agenda. So we're now on the area of new business, and I will go through the names as in the order listed on the agenda that was distributed. David DeQuincio, you're first.
Nothing from me this time. Thanks.
I hope you're selling lots of electric motors.
It is. We are completely overloaded in terms of inquiries, and we have, for every one person we can actually get a quote out to, I have 6 or 7 that are waiting, and they're just, I don't have staff, and it's a very difficult environment in which to try to hire.
Oh boy. Well, I appreciate the difficulties. Better this than the other.
You have
Okay. Vince Harriman is not here. Hugh?
No new updates, but I had one more question I thought for Karma. Karma, do you know where the resolution that you guys were taking up from our bike lane, if you guys had transcribed it to, I guess, your paper yet, or where that's at?
We have not transcribed it yet. I believe that it went into amendments to the budget as a line item. I'll have to double check on that and I can get back to you.
This is for the resolution for the bike path on the bridge.
Oh, sorry. I was in my mind, I was thinking you were talking about the crosswalk at onto
Yeah.
Google Gloucester. Sorry. I do not know where that is.
Okay.
I was not as heavily involved in that as I believe Rod Savage is, but I will reach out to him and find out where that stands.
Rod Savage had asked the attorney, who I think was leaving city government. I don't know if he's even here anymore. Gosh, what's his name?
Trip?
Yeah, Tripp. Is Tripp still working for the city?
No, he left.
He's gone.
Last day was last week.
Well, it was his action, and if he didn't do it, then it has to be handed off to somebody else.
I'll double check with Rob and I'll get back to you when I hear from him.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Hugh. Ed Bergman is not here. Zoe?
Okay, I have a couple updates. So while we're waiting for the pedestrian bicycle safety improvements to take place on King George Street and Route 450, we are moving ahead with a small repair project at the intersection of King George and Route 450 to the sidewalks that are sort of slanted. So next, it was going to happen in May, but we've been able to move it up because we want to get it done ahead of commissioning week. We will be doing a repair project at that intersection. So Karma, I'll be sending out a notice and a map just in request for you to send it with West Annapolis folks. And I'm working with Mitchell Stevenson at the city to get the word out as well. We'll be out doing some social media as well. We'll be during the week. It'll take about a week, and we will be rerouting sidewalk, pedestrians through our portion of the installation, both at Perry Center and in front of Halligan Hall, so that folks can continue maintaining access. We will be installing sidewalk closure aheads, messages and doing some rerouting, but I think it'll make that intersection at least safer for folks crossing the street. So it is, obviously we'd like to do the whole project, but we are waiting on the larger project design before that ultimately moves forward. But I just want to let folks know that there may be a slight inconvenience next week, but hopefully a better and safer intersection there for pedestrians.
Thank you.
And then additionally, we're working really closely with the city right now to work through some sidewalk improvements, as well as alleviate concerns of the residents in the Hanover neighborhood, which is sort of tucked in off of King George Street, between King George Street and the Naval Academy. We will be pursuing a project there soon. As soon as we get all some of the fine details worked out, to replace the perimeter wall that's behind the parking garage at the Naval Academy that's leaning. And so we will be taking out paid parking for upwards, in different phases for upwards of a year. So we're working closely with perimeter premium parking and the city, and we'll be hosting a public information night for residents to alleviate, to give them an update on the project, but also we're working with the city to ensure that it may be converted to resident-only parking, and then additional parking will be provided for the residents on King George Street. So we're working closely on that project and to alleviate any concerns with parking on street and parking revenue for the city on that project. Additionally, we received a letter of concern from a resident in that neighborhood, which is not related to the wall repair project, but just in general about midshipman parking for long periods of time and disregarding parking tickets for the issuance of parking tickets. And they didn't feel that that was enough of a deterrent to keep midshipmen from parking long-term and taking up parking spots. So we had a call with Marcus Moore last week, and Premium Parking again are beginning to work through a couple options and ways of sharing information and through the Naval Academy, contacting midshipmen and discouraging parking long-term outside of the installation gates. So just wanted to give a couple of those comments. If anybody else has concerns about long-term midshipmen parking, in areas that's not allowed or disregard of parking tickets, just reach out to me and we can work it. So that's all I have in terms of updates.
Thanks. In what areas were the midshipmen parking causing a problem? Just outside the gates?
At Gate 3 in that Hanover Street neighborhood.
I see. All right.
The long-term parking?
No, it's been converted to 2-hour and resident only, but they're continuing to park. The complaint was they're continuing to park there long-term, and that just a parking ticket isn't enough to discourage the behavior.
Now, why is that? Are they ignoring them, or they're so wealthy that just doesn't matter?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're using their whole monthly allowance on parking tickets. But
that doesn't seem reasonable. But
parking tickets will eventually catch up with you. Apparently, that's what I'm learning from Marcus. Premium parking. You may not feel the repercussions right away, but eventually it'll work its way to the MVA, and then ultimately to whatever state your car is licensed in. They said there were a couple states that they didn't have reciprocal agreements with, where it would get that ultimately added to your car registration. If you were pulled over, you'd be out of compliance. But in most cases, it will eventually catch up with you, but it may not catch up with you for a while.
Yeah,
So,
I'm surprised to hear that conventional parking enforcement just doesn't take care of that kind of problem. But it must have dimensions that I just don't understand.
We
All
also
right.
discussed it in we do a bi-weekly parking meeting where it's Premium Plus, Premium and SP Plus, and Alderman Tierney's normally on that, as well as Felicia, who works for the city and events. So we do this bi-weekly and we talk about everything that's going on. And that was actually brought up because we received the same complaint from the resident about the long-term parking. We did change or suggest making changes to the parking codes, because the current parking code actually says it can be, if you have 4 tickets, you can be towed. It doesn't say you will be towed. And the city parking contractors have always refrained from doing that, believing that the midshipmen needed to have a little bit of extra hand-holding in that, because they didn't have parking on the yard. But it was decided at that meeting that from now on, once it's 4, it will go directly to the transportation director for his opinion on whether we'll go ahead and tow if they do have 4 tickets. And there's a time frame, and I'll have to look back at the notes on that, but I believe it's 4 tickets within 60 days. So we are making changes to that so that traditional parking can take care of those issues.
Right. Yeah, Marcus is, we're working back and forth with Marcus on a few other options on how to communicate, parking regulations in the city to midshipmen, so they're well aware of it.
One more remark from a completely different perspective, having worked for the Navy. The superintendent and her command structure has a lot of control over midshipmen and what they do. So, and I would encourage the academy to exercise that control. If the city is having trouble, then the academy certainly can control the behavior of its midshipmen on and off site.
Right. So we're working the exploring the different options, both carrots and sticks, if you will, at discouraging the behavior, but also trying to find out ways we can work together with the city.
Great.
So there may be ways, there are different stickers that go on midshipman cars or faculty and staff cars. It may not, to the city, they may have no idea. They say they don't really examine cars to determine whose car it may be prior to ticketing. But if a car has been ticketed for 4 times in 60 days, they may have better way of identifying the car, and likely, if it likely is a faculty or staff or midshipman, how to reach out so that we can investigate.
Great.
It will be more of a concern moving forward, particularly in that neighborhood, because some residential parking areas will be restricted while we do that larger scale renovation project of that repairing that perimeter wall. So we're trying to be more sensitive to it for that reason, if not more.
Thank you. Next is Taylor Waters.
My only report is that St. John's College won the Annapolis Cup.
Yeah, so we saw.
Yeah.
Somehow that got by me completely. Is that still closed except
No, it's
for
open to the public?
Really? Because
For 1 year it was closed during COVID. Yeah. For
okay.
2 years.
Well,
Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry I missed it. That's a great event. Okay, Beth.
Just the comments I've already made.
Okay, thank you. Tom Schock.
I don't have anything. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. John Giannetti is not here, and I have nothing apart from what I've already said either. If there is no further input, I will call the meeting to an adjournment.
I'm sorry to delay everybody, but I don't know that I heard my name called.
Oh, Tara, first of all, thank you for the minutes.
You bet, of course.
Somehow we, my eyeballs need polishing.
Yeah, I didn't bring out the big light, so you can't. But if you recall, I raised the issue with the commuter buses, and so I did go to the public testimony at the library, the Annapolis Library on West Street.
Yes.
And so I will write something up. We've got until I think the end of the month to submit written testimony from the board. But there were really a lot of compelling arguments, but I want to just hone in on 2. One was quite a few people that got up and spoke to their inability to drive, either because they had physical disabilities or even learning disabilities, and that they had very good employment in Washington, D.C., and that this was their only avenue to actually maintain employment in sort of a peak engagement phrase. So it was really compelling to listen to that angle, as opposed to sort of the environmental impact angle, but really people, really relying on this in order to be employed and engaged in their community. So that was one. And the other was the number of people that got up and spoke and said that they moved to Annapolis because of this commuter bus line, that had they, had they not had the option, if this bus line didn't exist, they would not have moved to the Annapolis area. So I do think there's also a compelling argument to be made that you do have sort of K Street lawyer salaries and a pretty good economic impact on tax revenues to the city of Annapolis and the county, because those people have chosen to live here based on that bus line. So I thought I would hone in on those 2, but there were tons. There was a lot of complaint about the data, how they came up with it, how they were categorizing which lines should be cut and not cut, all of which were very interesting. So anyway, it was worthwhile. I guess I had never been to public testimony where you just get up to the microphone and you speak, and there is not a panel of people that are putting this policy in place to listen. So you really were sort of talking to a neutral guy who just tried to keep everybody on track and to record the comments, but not to get any feedback or to have any questions posed to MDOT about their decisions, which I felt
Is it somehow going to be condensed into a report or a summary?
I tried to inquire whether we could have access to that before we submit written comments, and I was told no. That it all comes out at the same time. Essentially everybody has to send in their comments or their testimony, and then they would release it.
Oh, but there will be a summary after the fact, after everybody has.
Well, I wasn't sure of that. I just knew, well, I should clarify. I knew I couldn't get it before I submit our comments.
Well, that's reasonable.
Can I know I'm not visual, so it's hard, but somehow I missed anything relating to that. So is the MDOT considering cutting the commuter buses to DC from Annapolis?
Yes.
Which are always full and heavy and
well, not
heavily
after
used.
COVID. Not after COVID. Beth,
Oh.
I mentioned it at a meeting, maybe you'd missed it. And then subsequent to the meeting, I did send out for everyone the timelines and the resources. You guys did get that, didn't you?
I don't know what
Right,
what
sorry,
I didn't see it, obviously. Okay.
Yeah. No, so it is really quite something, because what they're eliminating some lines. For me, for instance, I could still take another bus from the same Calvert and West Street stop where I picked my 220 up. But when I land in DC, unless they find some way to adjust the routes, I literally have a 9/10 of a mile walk to my office. And almost everybody. So they have two buses, one that goes below the mall pretty much, and one that goes above the mall. And farther above the mall and up to K. And they really have to have some sort of middle ground so that, so that everybody suffers to walk half a mile to the office and no one can get dropped off where it really makes sense. But anyway.
Well, thank you. This is really important. And those 2 points that you mentioned they seem compelling.
Yeah, I was advised by people that do lobbying that I should keep it short and sweet. I did make an attempt to talk to Wes Moore. I happened to be at the O's game and he was in the box next to me. But his handler had indicated that he was really there for the families impacted by the bridge, the cruise ship, not cruise ship, the container ship that ran into the bridge. And that's why he was there. They had been invited to the game. So he could meet with them and express his condolences and his support. But no, in the end, he was, doing some hammed up selfies with people. I just missed my opportunity, but I tried to lobby him.
Well, thanks for trying.
I did give some guy named Travis my talking points. But in talking to people I know that work with government, nobody could identify who this person would have been on Governor Moore's staff.
Right.
So, who Travis is, let me know. I would give him a call.
I don't. Okay, well, that appears to be it. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and we'll see you next time around.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.